Hello, Sharks. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we're going to be reviewing a hand from High Stakes Duel 2 on Poker Go, featuring two titans of poker. We have Phil Hellmuth, the king of the World Series of Poker. He has 15 World Series of Poker bracelets and $20-something million, $24 million in cashes to go along with that. His opponent, a wizard, Kid Poker, Daniel Negreanu, 6 World Series of Poker bracelets, $42 million in live tournament earnings. These two poker players seem to win all the money all the time. We're going to be looking at a hand they played at 400, 800 blinds, playing about 92 big blinds deep in the second round of High Stakes Duel. In this hand, Daniel Negreanu raises it up to 2,000 from the small blind, and Phil Hellmuth says, "That's too cheap for me. Bump it up." He makes it $8,000 with the 10-9 of spades, which, is actually okay. The suited connected hands that flop really well are reasonable enough to 3-bet. Interestingly enough, I talked to Daniel Negreanu here on my YouTube channel. I interviewed him, and I also interviewed Phil Hellmuth. Make sure you check out those interviews. If you did enjoy those interviews, do me a quick favor, click the like and subscribe button below. Also, click the notification bell if you want to make sure you do not miss out on any other great content like that here on this channel. And Daniel Negreanu said that he does not think Phil Hellmuth 3-bets / applies aggression before the flop with hands that generally flop well. Like, I think the example he used was King-Queen suited or Queen-Jack suited, stuff like that. And turns out he does every once in a while. Phil Hellmuth is here 3-betting the 10-9 of spades, which I think is good. Every once in a while, get in there, mix it up. And if your opponent's not going to be 4-betting you all that often, it's perfectly fine to 3-bet with these hands because they add a little bit of board connectivity to your range in general, such that whenever you 3-bet, your opponent cannot immediately put you on either a really strong pre-flop hand or some really trashy hand, which is what some people do. Some people 3-bet only their absolute best hands. That makes them really easy to play against. You want to make sure you mix in some of the best suited connectors that flop well. That way you have some nuts whenever the board comes middle cards. Anyway, flop comes Queen of Spades, 8 of Spades, 2 of Diamonds. What would you do in this scenario? When you flop the open-ended straight flush draw, what more do you want in your life? In this scenario, in Phil Hellmuth's shoes, what would you do? Would you check? Would you bet small, like 4,000? Would you bet medium, like 8,000? Or would you bet big, like 16,000 out of your 66,000 stack? I want you to pause the video and write what you would do in the comment section below. All right, did you do it? Great, great, great. If you have any question about how to play draws, I have a quiz for you to take as soon as you are done with this video. Go ahead, open up a new browser, go to pokercoaching.com/draws quiz. Most people cannot get all of these right. It's tough to know how to play your draws, and I want to make sure you are not messing up. So make sure you take that quiz as soon as we are finished with this video. This is a spot where you have to ask, how often am I going to get raised? Because if you bet something like 8,000 or 12,000 or 16,000 and face a raise to, well, let's say 3, 4, 5 times your bet or all in, that's really, 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 really bad with this flush draw. So you don't actually want to bet in the scenario if you expect to get raised a decent chunk of the time. Now, I don't think Daniel Negreanu is the type of player who's going to do a whole lot of raising in this scenario, especially if he thinks Phil Hellmuth's range is going to be mostly really good made hands like aces, kings, queens, ace, queen, king, queen, stuff like that, or just some total airballs like the 9-3 offsuit, right? If you know your opponent has a 9-3 offsuit, you don't really need to raise whenever you have anything. And if you think your opponent has some nut hand, you also don't want to raise when you're sitting here with a hand like king, queen. Because if they have aces, you ideally want to try to figure out a way to not lose all your money. So you want to keep your opponent in with all of their garbage, and you also want to try to lose the minimum when you happen to be beat. So this is a spot where I think it's pretty reasonable for Hellmuth to bet, because I don't think he's going to get raised all that often. That said, he does go for a check, and Negreanu checks behind. I have to presume Phil Hellmuth was going to go for the check raise, which I do think is quite reasonable. When you are out of position, you do want to check raise every once in a while with some of your hands that are good but vulnerable to being outdrawn. like ace queen, and then some draws to balance that out. Either really premium draws, like this hand, you could put in a check min raise with this hand and then reluctantly call it off if you get jammed on. Then you could also check raise with some weak draws, like maybe backdoor diamonds, like king 10 of diamonds. That could be a reasonable hand to go for the check raise as well, putting in a small check raise. So whenever you check raise small, you either have a good, strong top pair, top kicker, or perhaps overpair, which is basically the nuts. It's the effective nuts. Sometimes you're going to be beat, but not that often. And then you could have some really premium draws, and then you could have some really junky draws. That way your opponent is stuck in a guessing game. This time it goes check, check, though. Hellmuth turns the 9, giving him middle pair. And I think this is now a pretty reasonable spot to go for the check. Because now if you bet and get raised, again, it is miserably bad. I don't think you can get raised all that often, but I do think it is a spot where now the fact that we have a very clear marginal made hand makes me just want to check this. It is possible we're beat. Every once in a while, Negreanu is going to have a queen. Sometimes you're going to have a better 9. Sometimes you have jack 10 or 9-8. All of those are very possible. And when that is the case, again, Hellmuth now wants to minimize his losses. So this is a spot where I think he just wants to check. Hellmuth does decide to go for the value bet, though. He bets 9,000 into the 16,000 pot, and Negreanu calls. So the problem here is that when it goes Hellmuth bet, Negreanu folds, means Hellmuth just had the best hand and they move on. But whenever Hellmuth bets and then Negreanu calls, Negreanu's going to have either a hand that has really good equity, like King Jack for 2 overcards to this 10-9 plus the gut shot, or he's just going to have like a queen or a 9. Or, I guess they could have a hand with an 8, but a lot of the 8s are going to be a hand like Jack 8 or 10-8 that also have additional equity. So this is a scenario where I think when it goes check, check, or check, bet, call, Hellmuth's really happy. But whenever it goes bet, call, or bet, raise, Hellmuth is, fine enough, but he's certainly not loving it. That's okay. He rivers a flush. River is the 4 of spades, giving Hellmuth the flush. He also has a pair, but that doesn't really matter all that much. This is a spot where I have to presume he wants to go for a bet. He definitely could have some hands like random gut shots that missed. This is a kind of bizarre scenario, though, because why would Hellmuth 3-bet preflop and then check on this board? It means he either has some sort of really good made hand, some sort of really good draw, or some sort of junky draw. And would Hellmuth actually bluff the junky draws in this spot? I don't know. What do you think Hellmuth does in this scenario if he is sitting here with the king 10? Do you think he goes for the river bluff? One thing we generally saw when we watched High Stakes Duel on Poker Go is that Hellmuth really did not go for a whole lot of big river bluffs, which, to be fair, I think is actually probably a good exploit against people who call a lot. And for that reason, when he does bet here, it looks quite strong. The problem is that you just need to bet because Negreanu's range is going to be a lot of hands like a queen or a 9 that are just going to let it go check, check because, Hellmuth could be getting tricky. And if Negreanu does have some garbage, I guess he would try to bluff it, but even then, it's not like he has a ton of garbage in his range. So I think it's fine to go for the bluff here, or for the value bet here. Pot's 34K. I would go pretty big, like 20. And Hellmuth does go 18. I think this is quite nice. Now, Negreanu says some talking. Starts talking. Negreanu likes to talk. He gets reads on his opponent. He says, "This might be where Phil just gets the old payday. I don't think I'm folding this one." Then he says, "Oh wait, 4 spades. Whoa." I don't know what he meant by 4 spades. Maybe he meant that he could have had 4 spades on the flop because there's obviously only 3 spades on the board. I remember watching this, I'm thinking, what's he talking about? I'm thinking Negreanu meant that he could have had 4 spades on the flop looking to check raise. If that's what he meant, then, that's definitely viable. Like I said, this is a scenario where if we go all the way back to the flop, Hellmuth does have to be a little bit careful betting 4 spades here because he really doesn't want to bet and get jammed. And, stacks are set up such that if you do bet, you are going to get jammed sometimes. Not all that often, but sometimes, especially if you bet big, though. So maybe that's what Negreanu was talking about here. Then he says, "Well, I think you've earned this one. This would be crazy for me to throw this one away." And Negreanu does make the call with the queen 10. So, interestingly enough, Hellmuth was behind the entire way. So, a lot of people look at this hand and say, oh man, Negreanu let him get there. But you have to realize, on the flop, whenever Hellmuth 3-bets pre-flop and then checks, Negreanu must suspect a check raise incoming from a range that is going to be really strong made hands, which beats queen 10, also draws that have very good equity against queen 10, like this hand, And then some just total garbage, which you know has some equity, right? If he's sitting here with a random queen 10 or king jack of diamonds, that has pretty good equity. So this is a spot where I like the check back from Negreanu. You got to call the turn bet, and it's unfortunate, but I think you probably have to call the river bet too. So this is a spot where I think Negreanu played it well, probably lost roughly the minimum. I think Phil probably could have gone a little bit bigger on the river. In this scenario on the river, whenever your range is going to be pretty polarized, meaning you either have a flush, which is basically the nuts, something like aces, which is very strong as well, or a total bluff like king jack. In that scenario, you usually want to go quite big. Pot's 34K. I think he could have gotten away with a 20K bet, 25K bet. He did go 18, to be fair. It's not like he went 5K or something. And I think Negreanu was just on the hook. Sometimes when you're playing poker, you're just going to be on the hook. I just reviewed a few of my students' hand histories at pokercoaching.com, and they showed me a few hands where it's like, yeah, you're going to lose. And to be fair, in their scenarios, they got lucky their opponents didn't charge them the maximum. One of the guys flopped trips, and their opponent flopped a full house, and he just lost like only half his stack. Anytime you lose only half your stack when your opponent flops the nuts, that's actually a success. So, sometimes you run into it. There's a lot of variance in poker. Do not let it get it down. All you can do is continue playing your best and keep chugging forward. That's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, do me a quick favor and click the like and subscribe button below. Also click the notification bell and check out pokercoaching.com/free. I have loads of high quality, high value content there for you. Make sure you check it out and check out the draws quiz at pokercoaching.com/draws quiz. There'll be a link below the video. Good luck in your games. Have a great, great week. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you next time. Did you know that subscribing to this YouTube channel will increase your poker win rate by 36%? Go ahead, do it. Actually, that was a bluff. You actually have to watch all the content and apply yourself and work hard and put in volume. Sorry about that.